Now we're going to begin the new shir.
Elam Atzilus is the same model. It also has a world. It also has spheres. But it's on a different madrega altogether. It's completely above wisdom and intellectual reach and understanding, to the mind of a creation. Why? The wisdom, understanding, and the knowledge of Ein Sof is Yuchad Sham. Yuchad Sham is absolutely one. In the greatest quiet of unity, Yichud Atzum v'Nifla, in an intense and wondrous union, which is, of course, V'Yesed more weight and more power, L'Yein Kates, in an incomparable way, maybe Elam in the world of Bria. In other words, in Elam Atzilus, Ein Sof is revealed. In Bria, Ein Sof is not revealed. Only in the Beis HaMikdash of Bria, the Ein Sof is revealed through Atzilus. But in the world of Atzilus, the whole Atzilus is Ein Sof. Not just the Esesfiris of Atzilus Ein Sof. The whole Atzilus, if you live in the periphery of Atzilus, you experience Ein Sof. Now, I want you to know that there's a concept called Iyu v'Chayei Echad, Iyu v'Gamei Echad. Iyu v'Gamei Echad, Iyu v'Chayei Echad is not the whole Atzilus, it's only the Esesfiris of Atzilus. But there's such a thing called Gili of Ein Sof that's not an Eifen of Chad. In the Esesfiris, Iyu v'Chayei Echad, that in the Esesfiris of Atzilus, the Ein Sof of Atzilus is connected to the Ein Sof which is higher than Atzilus. In Olam Atzilus, there's a Gili of Ein Sof of Atzilus, but it's not connected to the Ein Sof which is higher than Atzilus. You understand? You understand the difference? Iyu v'Chayei Echad means that the Ein Sof of Atzilus is connected to Ein Sof which is higher than Atzilus. Iyu v'Gamei Echad means that the Elokus of Kalim of Atzilus is connected to the Ein Sof which is the Mocker of the Elokus of Kalim of Atzilus. In the Heichal of Atzilus, there's Taka Gili of Ein Sof, but there's only the Gili. It's not the Gili that's Mekusha to the Yetzim, to the Ihu, which is higher than that. You've one other thing that it says in the Gez, Livrei, to create Elamis. That's a whole other issue. The idea of Iyu v'Gamei Echad, that Hashem becomes one with Kelim to create Elamis Bia, is Take Ichitenius HaKelim. That's a big Chiddush. Because Iyu v'Chayei Echad, Iyu v'Gamei Echad, is Esfiris of Atzilus, which is a Lakus. But the idea that Hashem is unified with Caleb to create the next world is a different concept altogether. It's not a typical concept. It's simply for the sake of creation, that you have to have Yesh Me'ayin. Yesh Me'ayin Kedavki B'Shmeir in Sofish, En Me'ayin HaMoed, because it has Keach HaAtzmus, that he's Mitzusim Batzmusei, Ve'en Le'ilu V'Sib Kedemas Le'yesh Hazeh Chas V'Sholem. So for creation, in other words, there's two concepts, Iyu v'Chayei Echad. There's Iyu v'Chayei Echad, Stamazoi, which is only in the Esesfiris of Atzilus, and what's called in Kabbalah Pnimius HaKelim, but not in Chitenius HaKelim, not in the Medurit. The whole Atzilus has Taka Ein Sof, but there's no Iyu v'Chayei v'Gamei Echad. Chitenius HaKelim of Atzilus, when it comes to creating Bria, Yesh Me'ayin, there's a special event of Iyu v'Gamei Echad, so that the Keach for creation should come from Ein Sof. You understand? You understood what I just said? It's a drei bezunder in Yonim. Three things. So the Rebbe says Atzilus is the world which is very hard to describe. Why? What do you do? What do you do in your Atzilus? What you do in Bria is use your brain. What you do in Yitzhak is use your brain to use your heart. What do you do in Atzilus? You be a chariot. How do you be a chariot? What do? You have someone to whip you? What's mit Merkava? What does it mean to be a chariot to the Eibishter? It's a funny concept, but that's what Atzilus is. It says the world of Atzilus, and therefore also the Avodah, which is correspondent to the world of Atzilus, is Shulamayla Mesechel Vasoi V'Lasechel Nivra. Ki Chachmasei B'Nasei Change Baruch Hu B'Yichadus B'B'Tachas HaYichud B'Yichudim of the Yatzim. Okay. Kisham, we're going back to Bria now. In Bria, Yaradu, the light of the Eibishter, went down and was the Tzimtzum, Lahoi B'Bechinas Tzimtzum, to shine in a Tzimtzumed way. What's the Tzimtzum? Not that in Atzilus you have more Ein Sof, in a Bria you have less Ein Sof. No. In Atzilus you have Ein Sof. In a Bria you don't have Ein Sof. You know why? The Eibishter wants that we should exist and use our limited faculties in developing a relationship with the Eibishter. Kadesha Yuchlu, so it should be possible that Sichlim Nevroim, creations who may be intellectual, they may be moved from Gufis and be very brilliant, but they're intellectual, they're defined not by Ein Sof, but by Seichel. Ein Sof is Ein Sof, and Seichel is Yesh Sof, even the Seichel Nivla of a Malach. Lekabel Mehem Chabad, to receive from Getlachkeit, an understanding, Leides Adishem, to know God, Ulahavin, Ulahasik, to understand and intellectually reach. Eze has sagas, some kind of an intellectual reach, Beidin Seif Baruch Hu, in the infinite light of the Eibishter. Which is, of course, Kefi Keach, Sichli Manavroyim, based on the particular category of the intellectual definition of this Nivra. I want you to understand that in many Sfarim, when they talk about Ruchnisdike creations, they call them Sichlim Nivdolim. A Malach called the Seichel Nivdol. And the Shom called the Seichel Nivdol. Nivdol means separate from the Eibishter and separate from a goof. I believe that the Alter Rebbe's Lashon Sichel Nivraim means the same inyan. That it's Nivra means it's not a lakus, but it doesn't mean it has a guf. Theoretical, as a ruchnisdik intellectuals, their whole mitzvah is seichel, and the Eibush is mitzamtzem alakus, they should be able to use their seichel. Because when you have a gili of Ein Sof, there's no seichel, there's merkava. Bria is an intellectual world. You can connect to the Eibush using your brain, which is a gewaldige medida v'agbola. Shei balik v'vatachas, that as brilliant as they may be, they're limited and have a purpose. And the Eibush wishes that the alakus should reach them in a way that allows them to relate to Him using their minds, and not experiencing Ein Sof. Shlei is battle b'mityutim, they shouldn't lose their form. And as a result, they wouldn't be creations at all. It would cause them to return to the root and source, which is godliness. The Eibush creates Bria. He hides his Ein Sof in Bria. So we should be able to be us and relate to Hashem and not plots. What's our relationship? Seichel. So what's Seichel? It brings us closer to the Eibush. And what else? It stands between us and the Eibush. When you understand the Eibush intellectually, you never met him. You met his idea. Atzilus, you're meeting the Eibush. I feel not there's Ein Sof. Bria using your seichel next to the Eibush. In other words, the difference between Yitzira and Bria is measurable. Yitzira is, I'm connected to the Eibush with my heart. Bria, I'm connected to the Eibush through my brain. But in both cases, I am using me and my faculties and my identity to develop a connection to Hashem. If I am using me to connect to Hashem, on the one hand, I am bringing me close to the Eibishter, and ultimately I become the Hagbola, I become the wall between me and my relationship with Atzmos. What about Atzilus? It's not me using me, it's me being abused, misused. You experience Ein Sof, it's Merkava. You're not using your brain to get to the Eibishter, you're one, you feel the Lakus. Even though you're Yotzev and Nivid, it's not Mayachad, nevertheless it's Merkava. And that's Atzilus. It says Rabbi Hini, Tzimtzum Zeh, this Tzimtzum, it's the cause for the kind of light which shines in Bria. Chabad Shalein Tzai Baruch. The Lakus is coming in a form of Chabad. These souls which we discussed earlier, which is an Elam Bria. And again, you know, the Neshamas exist in the world of Bria. Their Teid and Mitzvahs is in the Beis HaMikdash of Bria, and Misham Meir Zivtas Mavidas. Mashenka Batzilus. Atzilus is totally different. Why? Because Einam B'chinas Tzimtzum Kol Kach. Atzilus is not Tzimtzum so much. Now, the words Kol Kach, of course, for those who come to the Samachay classes, it's right away a red flag. Atzilus is not it's not Elokus Be'etzim, like the Esesfiris. It's Elokus Be'giloy, but it's also not bad. You experience Ein Sof Be'giloy as opposed to Be'etzim, it could create Klipa, but it's Elokus. If a creation is identified as a Sichli, even if you're a Sichel like a Malach, or Sichel like a Neshama, and you have no Guf, you cannot get Ein Sof. Your brain is limited. Ein Sof is Ein Sof. And this is the reason that the thought processes, the Chabad of these Malachim and these Neshamas cannot tvis Hashem to grasp an Elokus Klal whatsoever. So what's Atzilus? Says the Rebbe Lachay, therefore, it's a home for big tzaddikim. Before we spoke about tzaddikim that their neshama is in Bria and their ruach and nefesh is in Yitzira. Now we're speaking about tzaddikim gedel. Tzaddikim gedel means Meisha Rabbeinu, mitzuki eretz, haveis ha'olam. You know, the Rabbeim, the Nesiach Chabad, the Nazei Vaiter. Says the Rebbe, they are not intellectuals. They're not connecting Hashem with Seichel. They're a Lakus Be'etzim. They're bottled to the Eibishter. Not because they thought about him and figured him out and understood him, because they know him. In them, the Eibishter was never hidden. There's no tzimtzum. They're neshamas begufim in this physical world, and they're in a state of merkava. They serve Hashem. Exactly what hard work they're doing, I don't know. But they're serving the Eibishter. But they're serving the Eibishter on the level of this bittul atzmi. Like the world of Atzilus in general, is above the level of understanding and knowledge, which is connected to the wisdom of a creation which is limited. So Ella, what are they doing? What do you do when you're in an Atzilus state? You're not using your heart, you're not using your brain. You're just being, you're just ising. Says the Rebbe Deloshen, they're a chariot for the Eibishter. They're totally bottled at Eibishter. They're nullified in their form. They're included in the light of the Ein Sof. Them, and everything that they have. They're a Merkava. They're bottled biyat. And through the Merkava, there's a gili of Ein Sof upon them. right? But I want to repeat, even for them, their Torah and mitzvahs is in the spheres of Atzilus, and they are, for the most part, in the Cholzim Adun. It's mashma in some places that neshamas like Rashbi somehow sneak into the Beis HaMikdash. This is Yetzid min HaKlal. But even the neshamas of Merkava is in Eilam Atzilus, and not in the spheres of Atzilus. Al derach she'amru, like the Baim HaChazal, ha'ovet heinin Merkava, davasar Merkava. V'hainu, the way this is, v'shekol yemeim ha'isas yesavedasim. All they did was be a chariot for the Eibishter. It doesn't mean that they worked hard. I mean, you could work hard too. They were pushed at Hecher and Neshamas. Their bittul to the Eibishter was not based on Seichel, not based on Midas, it was based on Etzim. So they belong in Elam HaTzilis. Their Torah and mitzvahs goes into the Beis HaMikdash of Elam HaTzilis because they did it al Merkava, not for any kavanah for themselves at all. And from that, Ziv Teirasim, Vavidasim is made to them from Esesvidus of Atzilis to the way they lived in the Echal Fluras and Tzitz. Look at Ach, Mishasherish Nishmosei, Kata Me'akil Aveda Tamazu. If your neshama is too small and you cannot be a keli for this perfect avodah, which is libatal v'likolel, to become nullified and included, be'edei yizbarach, in the light of Ein Sof, ba'avedasei, in your avodah, which is the madrega of Atzilus. And now the Alter Rebbe throws in a gavaldika wrench. He throws a chiddush nifla. Before he said that on Shabbos and Yom Tov you go from Yitzirah to Bria, right? Guess what? Neshamis of Bria, neshamis of Seichel, can experience Merkava from time to time. Chiddush nifla. Sometimes it happens that even in a shama, what we would call, he's normal, he's a person. He's takat tzaddik, but he's a mensch. And he serves the Eibishter using his heart and his brain. Sometimes he can become experiencing Merkava. Like the Alter Rebbe said in Tanya Perek Yud Beis, that a Beinani, during davening, becomes tzaddik. Like here he says, a tzaddik, during davening, becomes tzaddik godel, like tzaddik is bria. Tzaddik in Delim is Merkava. During davening, you can become like a tzaddik godel. Shuayis Ratzon Lamaila to special time above. And the same thing he said in Perikid Beis about the Beinani. Ukmei Tfilah Shmeina Esrei, like Daven Shmeina Esrei. She Batzilas. Shmeina Esrei B'chal is Atzilas. Or Befrat Pishtach Avoy Shabbat, especially when you're bowing. And of course the Rebbe brings the Bavus to Lashna Yerushalmi. Meinafshei Kodim. When it comes to Meidim, you bow automatically. And the Gemara says, Mandel Lekodim Meidim. A person doesn't bow by Moedim, automatically his spine becomes a Nochash. Means he has a Shaychas to the Nochash HaKadmeni, to the original sin. But if a Yid is Taka, Motel to the Eibishter, he bows by Moedim without even thinking about it. And this is the Madrega of Tzadikim Gedolim, which regular Tzadikim can experience when they're davening. Every bowing is a madrega of Atzilus. You're included in the infinite light of the Eibishter. To be recognized next to him, like nothing. Like the Alter Rebbe Ozai, so then, Gamkein also, Ikir Kfiyas Nishmasei, the primary place where his Neshama is fixed, Taki, is Hu Be'elam HaBriya, it's only in Briya, because he's a Neshama of Briya. Rak leprokim be'etziratzin. Sometimes in a special occasion, tal and his muscle atzilus. If the neshama goes up into atzilus, like the Alter Rebbe said, like during davening, bebechinas man through the aveda of Yisroel Latata, ki'yadu le'yedechem. And I would say to you that if you needed to describe Merkava, what's it the Merkava? The Neshama of Atzilus Merkava. I would say a couple of nekudas. Nekuda number one is that Merkava is takamul ma'ala lamata. It's a matana from the Eibishter. Seichel and Teva, you're working to get closer to the Eibishter. Merkava is ma'ala lamata. But just to perhaps find up on a kuda, we could say what Alter Rebbe said in Tanya Perek Yud, that there's something called Bnei Aliyah. Right? Bnei Aliyah have reached the highest madregas. And one of the things we know about Bnei Aliyah, that is chasadam is chasadim koinai. Their avodah is not to connect to the Eibishter. Their avodah is to bring the Eibishter into this world. They live mo'mayla lamata. Their whole avodah is not them. Their whole avodah is to bring the Eibishter into the world. And perhaps this is the madrega of Merkava. Perhaps. And I want to add that even though here the Alter Rebbe only says three things, there's really something called a Talmud b'maisav. A Yidu has a kavana of tmimus, of bitl and kabbalah seil, that his mother is Asiyah Haruchnis, and his Teira Mitzvahs goes to Gan Eden of Asiyah Haruchnis.